best known way is about providing social enterprises with the tools that they need to do what they do as well as they can do it. And those tools have been developed by other like-minded organisations and can be provided as models that organisations can pick up in order to make sure that they achieve the highest standard of practice in their areas of activity. So Best Known Way exists to build those models, to gather those models and to share those models. Gotta Get Ganji is a small organisation. We're set up to establish a trust fund to support Aboriginal people in Arnhem Land. It's critical for us that investors into the trust fund are able to feel confident that the decision processes around the management of the funds, the distribution of the funds and so on are absolutely clear and auditable in a sense. And so Best Known Way has been really important for us as a startup to think through what are the key processes that we need to have in place that can give that confidence, and what are the key processes that need to be in place that as the trust grows it can grow into those processes without just sort of stumbling along. So we're a small organisation starting up. We need to know how we can grow. So Best Known Way has really helped us think through what we need to look like in order to achieve a high level of operation with a fairly small group of people in a very distributed organisation. That's one of the terrific things about Best Known Way is that each of the organisations that come in bring the perspectives that they have from their particular organisation, operation and goals, but we're able to share and learn between those organisations. So instead of making things up from scratch, as it were, you're able to work with your other Best Known Way collaborators and say, yep, I need that process, that's great, I don't need to rethink that process. So for us, we're still establishing. Ultimately we will need to be a grant-making organisation, not a grant-taking organisation. So other Best Known Way partners have already been through the process of thinking through how to do grant-making well, and so we're able to access that knowledge without having to reinvent those processes, which is a key benefit for us. For me, one of the reasons for getting involved in Best Known Way in the first instance was and is the view that social enterprises typically, as I understand them and talk about them, are largely seen as not for profit. Somebody once said to me, and it's probably a well-known statement, that it's the only sector that describes itself as the thing it doesn't do. To me, Best Known Way was and is about reversing that perception, that it's about a purposeful sector, purposeful group of organisations who are out there to create change, improve the world and so on. But Best Known Way is about also saying, but just because you're doing that doesn't mean that it can't be business-like, it can't be profitable, it can't be beneficial at a number of levels. So the reason we got involved was to support that positive message. What I would like to see with Best Known Way, what would it look like in 3 years if it's successful? A number of organisations. So at the minute there's a small group of organisations who are members of Best Known Way. That membership is full, that membership is active, it's trading its ideas amongst us. So the sector, the social enterprise organisations in Tasmania are strong, but they're sharing and selling their knowledge around the nation, hopefully broader than that in the long term, and are seen, Best Known Way is seen as a model of excellence as to how social enterprises can be seen as a contributor, not as a drain.
So what you're saying, I think, the process moves from being an expense, you develop them as a cost to the business, and it becomes a tradable asset.
Well, processes are assets. I think that's often, organisations put huge investments into their processes, and I think social enterprises particularly, because I think the scrutiny that comes on social enterprises tends to be greater in many cases than in for-profits. If we behave like the way some for-profits behaved, we'd be shut down overnight. It's because there's a much higher level of expectation on the social enterprises. So, so that's right. We make a huge investment of time and effort in those processes. What Best Known Way can help us do is unlock the value of that investment.
And this issue that either you work for the for-profit sector and so you're there to make money primarily, or you work for the not-for-profit sector, and let's just throw out everything that we know works in the for-profit sector and pretend we're not going to do that. So let's make sure that we don't spend any money on marketing. Let's make sure that we are run by volunteers or underpaid staff. Let's basically design our business so it runs on the smell of an oily rag.
Yeah, it was a powerful
Do you think it's
message.
Okay to make profit? Do you think it's okay for individuals to make profit
Sure.
from a social enterprise?
Sure. There was that video by Dan made a number of really important points, but one point I thought was really particularly telling in relation to that question, which was that as a society we're quite happy, and apologies to him for paraphrasing inaccurately, but as a society we're quite happy for people to generate millions, tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars of profit, for instance producing violent video games, but we are up in arms if someone tries to make profit out of doing social good, out of health or education or environment where I work, and that just seems bizarre to me. So with that argument in front, I find it very hard to argue against why we would set up an incentive to profit and applaud profit for sort of this social enterprise, and why we criticise profit for social enterprise. So, but I think it's it's a sort of a fundamental flaw in the way we think about these things. A really good point he made.
Yeah, cool. Anything else you want to say?
No, Bill. I think